Before we move into week 2, we need to talk about the newest AP rankings because this list has some shakeup not only within the top 4, but within the top 10, and we need to break it down. But before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from you. Hop down in the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you agree with the newest AP rankings? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content and you don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions, though small, are massive to content creators such as myself. But with all that being said, let's hop straight into the newest top 10. And at the newest top 10, we have at number 1, Alabama. At number 2, Georgia. 3, Ohio State. 4, Oklahoma. 5, Texas A&M, 6, Clemson, 7, Notre Dame, 8, Cincinnati, 9, Florida, and 10, Iowa State. Now, specifically, let's focus on the top 4 right now because these are the quote-unquote playoff teams, though the playoffs is a long ways away. But the reason why I want to start there is because there's some shakeup to the top 4. Not at our number 1 spot, because at number 1, Alabama still maintains that position. Going into week 1, the Alabama Crimson Tide were pegged as the number 1 team in the nation in this AP poll, and they certainly showed it in their outing against Miami. Look, if we're talking Alabama, Alabama was a team that had a lot of questions. I thought they'd be an extremely talented team, and I was on record saying that even though the offense lost so much, I thought they would come together quicker than most people expected. I, however, did not anticipate from snap 1 of that game, that offense to be clicking the way they were. This is going to be such a fun unit to watch. Bryce is such a fun quarterback to watch because of his escapability and just his poise, the way he plays the game. He is a really fun guy to watch play football, but this Alabama team is going to continue growing. Remember, this offensive line had shakeups even going into the game where there were players being moved around in different positions, so this is a unit on the offensive line that will continue to gel, that will continue to get experience. 3 new faces along the offensive line. It's a unit that is going to come together. The other thing that I was very impressed with was the chemistry already with Bryce and the new receivers, but that's also something that's going to continue improving. On the second play of the game, Alabama took a deep shot, and they were only a hair away from having another long touchdown with Jamison Williams and Bryce Young. But that relationship is going to continue going with more reps, more experience. Alabama is going to have a really fun offense. And on the defensive side of the ball, they were certainly as advertised. This Alabama defense has been pegged as one of the better ones in college football, or at least that's what many think, myself included. And hey, Saturday, the only thing we can say is those of us that thought Alabama's defense would be much improved are completely vindicated after Saturday. So that was awesome to see. At number 2, Georgia makes sense to me. Look, if we look at the landscape of college football and take it into consideration that this was a top 5 game in Georgia versus Clemson, both teams ranking within the top 5, both teams having a really, really high expectation of what their season would be. Ultimately, Georgia getting the W, I think, warrants this number 2 spot, especially if we look at it in conjecture with the Oklahoma Sooners. The previous number 2 team really struggling against Tulane, but we're going to talk about them here in a bit. At number 3, there's Ohio State. This isn't surprising to me either. Ohio State got a W against Minnesota. At number 3, Ohio State also makes sense to me. They get a W over Minnesota, and Minnesota's a team I'm very interested in. It was very intriguing listening to the analyst of that game talk about how last year, even though Minnesota may not have had the year they wanted, they had multiple people out with COVID every week and on a week-by-week basis. I believe the number was something like 20-plus players on average were missing their games due to COVID protocol. It's very hard to win in that situation, but PJ Fleck is a really solid head coach, and I'm very intrigued as to how Minnesota will be for the rest of the year because we might look back and say, okay, well, Ohio State actually beat a pretty darn good Minnesota team. I'm not saying they'll be top 10, but I think that's a pretty solid team Ohio State played. Nonetheless, Ohio State's defense is going to be something that needs to come together and be a bit more solid if they want to reach where they want to reach. Now, finally, Oklahoma at 4. This is what we really need to talk about because I, along with many others, have been saying that I thought Oklahoma's defense would be much improved, and I have to be honest, Saturday that did not look to be the case. Now, in fairness, I, along with others, thought this defense would be improved for a few reasons. First and foremost, when you look at how they've improved year to year with Alex Grinch, This defense was very, very bad a few years ago, and ever since Grinch has come, they've been getting better and better and better and finishing higher and higher in the rankings. Now when we look at this year, this was an Oklahoma defense that not only returned a bunch of talent, but got some really talented recruits on the defensive side of the ball that looked to be contributors. So when you mix the fact that this was a defense that had already been improving, it returned some important pieces and got some important pieces in a recruiting class, I thought it was logical that this defense would continue making its steps and progressions. Now, I'm not ready to say that they're not going to. I still believe they will, but they certainly have some things to figure out. You know, I was always told if you don't do the easy things right, how are you going to be expected to do the things right when it gets hard? And that was the kind of thing that stuck into my mind when Lincoln Riley said, oh, we might have overlooked them. Now, ultimately, at the end of the day, I think this will be corrected because if it's not, we're looking at other issues with Oklahoma. This is still a team that has a lot of talent on offense. They have a lot of talent on defense. And now I think Grinch is out to prove that what happened Saturday was just a fluke, or at least that's what the mindset needs to be for Alex Grinch, because Oklahoma needs to show that what happened Saturday was truly just a one-off and that they didn't come to play. If that happens, I think we can look at that, put it in the back burner. It's week 1. And look, in fairness, when we look around college football, to quote Funny Mane, a lot of teams squeaked out struggle wins, right? Like whether we're talking Iowa State, Florida, Texas A&M, a lot of college football week 1 didn't have banner days. There was a lot of struggles. There was growing pains, but that's to be expected in week 1. So the question isn't how you start. It's how you finish and how you progress once something doesn't go your way. And that's what ultimately I'm going to be looking along the top 10 teams to see how things shake up. Just outside, A&M at 5, I do believe A&M is a team we need to watch. Haynes King had some big struggles in the first half against Kent State, but ultimately A&M was able to pull away. But how does this offense continue to progress with a new quarterback is going to be something very interesting to see. At 6, Clemson, I think everybody's very interested to see how Clemson's going to rebound. Now, unfortunately for Clemson, the ACC is not very good, and it did not help them at all for Miami to get blown out and North Carolina to get upset, because now the other 2 teams in the ACC we were looking at as being the other 2 powers in the ACC outside of Clemson have those titles stripped from them. So now Clemson is in a really precarious situation. We got to see how this goes. The other team that didn't make the top 10, I'm not saying they should, but a team we need to keep our eye on is UCLA. Look, I picked LSU to win that UCLA-LSU matchup. The reason was simple. I didn't know if you could be one-dimensional and win against LSU, and I was certainly wrong. LSU, first off, does not look very good. They are a team that's coached by a guy that's supposed to be a trenches guy, and they got obliterated in the trenches. So, you know, I'm not really sure what it is Coach O is doing there now, because if you're a trenches guy and that's a terrible part of your outing, I don't know what it is you're offering. So that's going to be something we have to watch with LSU going forward. Coach O and them, they don't look very good. And, you know, Coach O continues to prove he is Coach O. A little bit arrogant, going in there saying, come on with your silly blue shirt as you get spanked by that team. You know, it's just something to think about. It's going to be very interesting to see where LSU goes from here, because that was not a good outing. I'm very interested to hear from y'all. Hop down in the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.